Hello everyone, how's it going? I come to you today with another tag. I'm trying to wipe the slate clean with all these tags I have to do. So this is the beginner books tag. This is sort of a few questions about how you got started reading, um, and stuff like that. There's 8 questions. I was tagged by Laura Pora, who has a wonderful channel that you should all subscribe to. I'll link her down below. But yeah, I'll get right to the questions. So number one is, what's the first book that got you into reading? And it says in parentheses, formative years, ages 5 to 10. And I didn't read when I was between the ages of 5 and 10. So I'm gonna have to ignore the parentheses part of that question in order to answer it. And there wasn't really any book in particular that got me into reading, that made me into a reader. Some books that I remember reading early on. One was Thus Spoke Zarathustra by Friedrich Nietzsche. Another was Utopia by Thomas More, and another was The Republic by Plato. And if you'll notice, these are all kind of really heavy works of nonfiction philosophy. And I'm not sure. I took a class on the history of psychology in my senior year or my junior year of college, and a lot of the history of psychology is philosophy. For many years, psychology was just a subfield of philosophy. So I heard a lot about philosophy in that class, and Nietzsche and Thomas More didn't really factor into that class. I just kind of found out about them through the grapevine. What I did learn about a lot was Plato, because his theory of the forms and the fact that he was a rationalist kind of was really influential in the long term for the development of psychology. But then I kind of ran into these two just by happenstance when I started to look up more books on philosophy, and this Thus Spoke Zarathustra really blew my mind. I need to reread it though, because I don't know. I kind of have a feeling it'll be one of those books that when you read it when you're younger, your mind is blown by it, and then you mature a little bit, and maybe you kind of see the holes in it. But this book kind of has all these ideas of how you should create your own sort of morality and your own worldview rather than subscribing to a dogmatic religious or cultural worldview, sort of. So I think that was why it blew my mind at the time. But and then Utopia is about a place called Utopia, which is sort of supposed to be what Thomas More saw as the kind of perfect society. And I don't remember that much about this perfect society, but I do remember one very interesting thing, which was that when people committed a crime, they weren't just sent to prison and told that they had to just stay in prison for years. They were actually put to work. The prisoners, the people who'd committed crimes, were actually just they did the everyday manual labor. They like built houses and roads and stuff, and that to me just seems like a much better way to punish criminals, is to actually, I don't want to say use them, but like put them to work. Don't just have them be kind of sitting in prison not doing anything. But yeah, so those three books in particular, and then I kind of took off from there. After I read those three, I read Cloud Atlas by David Mitchell and really liked it, and yeah, the rest is history, I suppose. I don't know. But number two is, what book got you through the awkward preteen years, ages 11 to 13? And I actually do have an answer for this that is in line with the question this time. Because even though I didn't read that much as a kid, I did read some. There were a couple series that I liked, and the series I was really into in middle school was the Guardians of Ga'Hoole books, by Catherine Lasky. And this is a series of books that takes place in this fantastical world where owls have like developed an intellectual life. I mean, they have like philosophers. They have this giant tree where they have a king and queen, and they screw longer talons into their normal talons so that they can go to war with each other, and they make armor, and they talk to each other naturally. And so it's just this fantasy series. I mean, the first book starts with the young owl named Soren, who gets abducted by this kind of group of religious fanatics who try to indoctrinate him and several other young owls into their worldview. I can't remember that much of it from it, but and then they escape, and then they go to join. I can't remember what they're called, but they end up kind of fighting this war with these religious fanatics, and I don't know, they were fun. If I read them these days, they probably wouldn't impress me much, but as an 11-year-old, they were good, and yeah, I needed them because 11 to 13, yeah, that was a weird time. But number 3 is what held your attention in high school, and I also have a answer for this, and it's the Warriors series by Aaron Hunter. These are similar to the Guardians of Ga'Hoole in the sense that they're about animals, but this time it's cats. So it's like it's about 4 clans of wild cats. There's Thunder Clan, there's Wind Clan, River Clan, and Shadow Clan. And it's written sort of in series of 6 books. So like the first series of 6 books follows Fireheart, who starts out as a house cat and then kind of runs away with these wild cats and joins Thunder Clan, and it's just about his trials and tribulations in these clans throughout these books. Eventually, he ends up becoming the leader of Thunder Clan. Spoiler alert. But they're pretty good. Again, I might not be that impressed by them if I read them now, but they're pretty good. Actually, it also occurs to me, both of these series are, for being for kids, they're pretty dark. I mean, I was actually reading an article about Warriors one day, and the person writing the article called it The Sopranos, but with cats, and honestly, that is kind of an accurate description, because, I mean, there is, like, blood and gore, and lots of cats die, a lot of main characters die in Warriors. It's pretty gruesome. But yeah, so that's mainly what I read in high school. And question number 4, name a fictional character you relate to, and the answer hands down for me was the main character from Thomas Wolfe's Look Homeward, Angel. He's named Eugene Gant, and there was this one scene in particular where I was like, yeah, I am this guy, where he is imagining, like, a story. He's, like, writing a story in his head, sort of. This is an autobiographical novel, so naturally the main character wants to write, and he kind of envisions this terrible like story out of a cheap Western novel of the cowboy sweeping this girl off her feet, and they're falling in love and they're kissing, and that's just the sort of thing that occupied my brain when I spaced out. I would think of these weird stories, usually involving animals in my case. As you could see by the 2 series that I read as a kid, I was really into writing stories about animals. So, yeah, I really related to this character. And also, he's an introvert just like me, so, yeah. Question number 5, what is a book you wish had come into your life sooner? And for this, I'm just going to say, like, all books, like, reading in general. I wish I had been reading sooner. I wish I had been a reader sooner, because I kind of feel like since I was 21 and actually started reading regularly, I feel like I've been playing catch-up the whole time. So, yeah, I just wish all books had come into my life earlier and that I'd been a reader earlier. Number 6, name a book that came into your life at the exact right moment. And I have an answer for this, and it's one... it's not a book, it is an author who has come into my life this year, and I think I was at just the right level of maturity, both in terms of, like, as a person, but also just in my reading maturity. I think I was just at the right point for this author to come into my life, and it's Shakespeare. This is just my Riverside Shakespeare, but yeah, obviously ShakeTube happened, and I continued reading Shakespeare plays. I only have 4 now that I haven't read. I don't think I'm gonna rush and read them by the end of the year, because none of them are any of the, like, really well-known plays, and I'm not that interested in any of them. But anyway, I think Shakespeare came into my life this year at just the right time, and one of my new favorite authors. I mean, that feels presumptuous to call Shakespeare one of my favorite authors, because it's, like, Shakespeare, but he really is. So, yeah. Number 7, a book that taught you something, and what did it teach you? For me, this is the Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. So this is just a crappy Dover Thrift edition, but this is Marcus Aurelius was a Roman emperor, and he was kind of one of the few emperors who also at least tried to rule well and was sort of a decent human being. But basically, these are sort of just things he wrote down at nighttime in his tent. He spent a lot of his rule of as emperor on campaign in Germany because there were attacks from German tribes. But he would go to his tent and write, and this is the book that resulted. And the main thing I learned was that if you have no control over something, then you shouldn't worry about it. And if you do have control over it, then you should do something about it. And that, like, I don't always do a good job of following that sort of philosophy, but like, it's always in my head, and I always try to, and I feel like it's a really healthy approach to life. Just accepting the things that you can't control and only focusing on controlling what you can control. I think it's helped me a lot, especially in school and especially in graduate school, which can get quite stressful. And number 8, a book about a real life role model. And I have a bit of a strange answer for this. I'm going to say Misbehaving, The Making of Behavioral Economics by Richard H. Thaler. So this is a nonfiction book, obviously, but Richard H. Thaler won the Nobel Prize in Economics this year, and he didn't single-handedly create the field of behavioral economics. You might get that sense, but he didn't. He had a lot of collaborators, and a lot of people have done research without him, of course. But the behavioral economics took a lot of ideas from the field of psychology and applied them to economics, and just Richard Thaler's passion for research and for bridging different fields together really came through in this book. And for me, because I'm in grad school and I want to get a PhD and I want to be an academic and do research, that was really inspiring to just see his passion for research come through the page, and especially bridging different fields is something I'm very interested in too. I study political psychology, which is kind of an inherently interdisciplinary field because it crosses over a lot with political science. So, yeah, anyway, that is my answer for that, and that is the last question. Now, all that's left for me is to tag people, and I actually am going to tag several people. I'm going to tag Sean the Book Maniac. I am going to tag Curtis Books and Films. I'm going to tag Steve Donahue. I'm going to tag The Medieval Reader, and I'm going to tag Peg from Book Reviews from Peg. So, yeah, that is the Beginner Books tag. So, thanks for watching, guys. Bye!